Hey everybody, it's Marty the JavaScript Party. It's almost 2 o'clock on a Sunday, but we have a 3-day weekend. I slept like 10 hours last night, and I sometimes when you sleep too much, your brain doesn't quite function right. But we have gotten to a pretty good place. There's a movie called Saving Private Ryan where I believe that's the movie where Tom Hanks is leading a group of people to try to save a guy, and on the way they run into like a battle that they like a machine gun nest that they have to disable. He's like, hey, we're on the way. We've got to take care of it. We can't just leave it. Blah blah blah. So it's quite emotional scene, but um, we are working on something called CRUD, and our mission right now is to get update working. On the way, we have figured out that we're very, very much lacking in communication schemes. And not only are we lacking on communication schemes, but then there was another communication scheme that we had started to go down, and that communication scheme is different than what we sort of became maybe what feels like the obvious way to do it now. So I don't know what to think of that. It's like happens all the time. If we were working for a corporation on a like like on a sort of a main mission sort of application, um, doing these refactors like I've been doing really wouldn't be feasible. Um, there's a lot of reasons. Stop it. She got quiet. At the last video, she started getting really loud like that. And Rhett, what are you doing? Um, she, and then I was like, oh, she's not going to get to stay in for the next video. And then she got quiet shortly after that. And then she's been quiet ever since. And then she started up again. But anyway, um, so we decided I ended up going down. Oh, it wouldn't be feasible to do this, what I'm doing here, because the thing is, let's see. Um, the thing, the thing is she is really rowdy today. Um, the thing is there's other people, would be other people working on this in all likelihood. So like refactoring things out from underneath them can be very, very disturbing and difficult to do, and very inconsiderate. Additionally, normally when you're working like in an organization, you're part of like a larger plan, and they're trying to get things done certain times, and they really don't have. It doesn't work. It affects a lot more than just you to just say, well, no, I got to do this refactor. This is the time to do it. But we're working on a personal account project. And sometimes you might be working on like a single passion project in an organization, and you can do that. And it's just like the things you can and can't do really change based on your context. And there are a lot of analytical people want there to be a right way and a wrong way, and that's just how it is. But I mean, it's just very rarely like that. I mean, normally, you know, like the right way, the wrong way just has a lot to do with what what are we even talking about? Like that's part of it. So, anyways, I got it's pretty good, right? So I got it to where the so what we're trying to do is we're trying to get it to where see when you go here, this thing has an aspect ratio of 1. The element that contains this yeah, is the same height and the same width. And then if you go to this view, it's the same deal, right? So I think I can, yeah, so in this mode, I cannot click on it. But it's the same height and same width. But when we go to update, the width is longer than the height. And so then there's an actual aspect ratio. And then we also, and so the thing was, so I wrote sort of this chain of code that all kinds of different things are happening. And since those different things are happening, um, this uh, uh, the information of what the actual um, aspect ratio that ThreeJS is applying was not necessarily was not going to be easily viewable in the UI. And I was like, I know at some point in the future I'm going to want to know the actual values. Um, and then additionally, um, I know that I calculate in some cases I calculate a value, and sometimes I don't. Well, I'd like to know what the calculated value was. And I felt like, okay, so it makes sense to sort of build out the communication structure to do that. So we did that. So and that led to all kinds of like new interfaces, all kinds of stuff, right? That is not something that I don't think you want to do in a professional environment on an enterprise application. You definitely have to put a lot more thought than you just deciding that's the best thing to do. Um, because so, anyways, for lots and lots of reasons. Um, so we got that, and so I was like, man, I really like how this all works out. It feels right and all that. It's not perfect. Um, I think one thing that would have been really nice is if I looked in my services and I kind of saw the mirror image of that in my interfaces. Like if this matched up, but we have base here, we have utilities over there, we have layout here, we have UI here. Um, they kind of seem like they might be the same, but as we start to dig into those, there's all kinds of wrinkles and stuff. So, but it all seems to work really well in as far as communication goes. So, this ST has a publish. Everything outside of this directory, if it knows something, it's gone through the publisher. 3 has a publish. If anything outside of 3 knows anything, it's gone through the publisher, right? So all that stuff to me makes a lot of sense. And I believe we went over all the different things that are changing, and they all looked good. So it's like, man, this is the time. This is the time to do a commit, even though it's not like, because it all works, even though it's not how we want it to work. Because honestly, this stuff should be in its own component. But I think as we go down the path of trying to make the editor component, we're going to run into more issues that we need to that this is the perfect time to solve them in. And so as those new issues come in, and I'm just looking for anything just jumping out saying that it's screwy. As those new issues come in, this like 24 file change with hundreds of lines of code is just going to go larger. And many times when you're making changes, there's a point where you just have to nuke everything. You're just like, okay, I have gotten things so screwed up that I just need to undo everything I've done. Well, I do not. If that happens, I don't want to lose this. I think this code, all my instincts tell me is what I want to keep this. I want this to stay. So, but then I have a rule for this project. And the rule is that I will be done. Before I do any commit, that will also include testing. And I don't know if that's a good rule or not. And I will say that, like, when I've been coding, I've been saying, "Oh man, I'm doing this at such a different scale and doing things so differently that it's taking forever to get anything done." But honestly, the biggest reason things are taking forever is because of unit testing. Testing, especially early on, was taking me a long time. But the last few times unit testing went really well. So my unit testing has got like 2 layers. One is, do all the unit tests pass? And 2 is, do we have 100% coverage? I used to have 3 layers. I used to have like, it does every suite test itself 100%, but I think that might be a bit much. Maybe I'll go back to that at some point. But anyway, so now let's go ahead and run our test. npm run test is what I have. And that is because in my package, we have at the top this test. So npm run test basically runs this code here, ng test watch coverage, and it ensures that it's done with all the libraries and everything for this project. So anyways, here we go. Run our test. So the first round, we're on the first round, we're just hoping for all tests to pass. And once we get all, and I don't think any will break. Maybe some will break. I don't think so, but we'll find out. And then if they all pass, then the next test will be to achieve 100%. And then, maybe we might decide to do some like deeper unit testing as we're going in. We might say, you know what, this one needs some deeper testing, because we don't really, like, if I don't really understand how it's working, unit tests can be a really, really good way to get things working. Additionally, I might decide that I want to make sure that I have a bit more coverage inside of whatever component it is. So our unit tests do not compile. And that makes sense because we moved stuff around. So let's go to our first unit test. Okay, so this one's upset because it expected 4 arguments, but it only got 2. And that's render in native element. So that one catches me by surprise a little bit. So let's go over here, render in native element. So let's go back to this view. So this is in our, let's close everything else. So this is in our viz service, render in native element. So let's go look at our service. So this is our component visualization service. I think I can go to implementation. And this will take me to it. Okay, so now it's looking for a width and a height. I think we can just get away with passing it a width and a height, and it'll just start working. So I'm just going to say the width is 100 and the height is 100. And then I don't really want to do that. So const width is equal to 100. Const height is equal to 100. Now at this point, maybe it makes sense for me to go, okay, well, let me dig in and understand what this is actually doing. But, you know, it's like, that is extraordinarily time consuming. And at this point, I haven't quite done that. I would be surprised, maybe there'd be something we could check to make sure that like the aspect ratio is 1 or something, but I don't know. I think that might be outside the scope of this this effort. Is it running again? I don't know what's happening. I don't know. So we should have got, oh, it won't even compile. So I don't know. We might, that's kind of a bummer. So it doesn't seem to be like picking up my changes. I wonder if we come into the service, we hit save. Because I think it coming all the way back up is probably much more time consuming, but I can't see any way to do it other than that. I guess I could, it probably made sense though to fix the other ones that I know are wrong, like this guy. I think literally all we have to do to fix this is get rid of this here, and then appeal, and then click on this, and let it figure it out. And so that's pretty time. That saves a lot of time. And so let's go to this and hold control button down, hit this. Line 6 is messed up. Line 6, column 9, right there. We'll get rid of that. Hit save. So this right now, I'm being a tool jockey, right? I'm writing the tool. I don't understand exactly what's going on, but I've done this so many times that I don't really need to understand it. I understand what it's doing. I'm just not like thinking through all the minutia of all the different steps of what it's doing. Okay, an argument for element was not provided on this one. Okay, this is weird. Okay, I think I need to restart now. It is very slow though. Let's see if there's any kind of easy ones to fix. Let's see, expected 2, but only got 1. This might actually be the same issue. So it wants an element, I think. Let's go to the implementation. Yeah, it's looking for an HTML div element. So I want to mock an HTML div element. Let's just see if I do that anywhere else in here, because a lot of times I know we do that in other places. We mock a div element. Um, let's see. So basically, we want to write we want to be able to mock this element here. So I'm going to go to ChatGPT. And honestly, if you're working on your jobs code, they are probably not going to be happy if you copy and paste code into ChatGPT from your production code. So I definitely would strongly, like what I typically will do is I will open like a notepad, paste this code in there, modify the code so that it's lost all sort of context with what I'm doing, and then ask my question. But I want to mock this the HTML element, HTML div element. For this function, unit test, Jasmine. I think I misspelled karma. I think it's K. I feel like it's getting a little bit mock div. So this is all I want. See, I think I did not want all of this. I think I just wanted this piece of how do I mock my div. I think I could pass that whole thing in. So one of the things it did is it had that ChatGPT did is it analyzed what I was looking for, and then it gave me the. So that was the piece that I really didn't want to do on my own, was figure out, okay, now what things do I need to add. Okay, so that takes care of that. I feel like we might be good, but I don't know. Tests. So like probably when I first started coding, the very first time I had to write unit tests, of course I got like super vague, like write the unit tests and here's the other unit tests and stuff like that. So I got really vague instructions, and so we're good. They're all passing now. Um, and actually, the very first time I ever had to do this, it was on a project that had like 100% unit test coverage, but or no, like 75% unit test coverage, but nobody had maintained the unit tests in several years, and they wrote a bunch of code without doing the unit tests, and all the unit tests were broken. So I just spent so much time on that. Okay, so it looks like we are failing at least one unit test at the moment. Um, and I believe we can figure out which unit test. It's so strange that it's hard to figure out what the unit test is, but it's in this app update layout component. So that's one of my new ones. So yeah, it's a brand new one, so it's not surprising that that's not working, because this is just the default that it created. So, see, it's a shame that it doesn't give you the path to it. So typically what I'll do is I will look for this text right here. So I think that will get me there. But now I'm trying to be a little bit more like spatially conscious. So app update layout component seems like it's the name of a component. So it's going to be, I guess, in my layouts, in components and inside my layouts. App update layout component. So that's a good way to do that, right? Like instead, I was going to search, but maybe kind of thinking out loud works better. All right, so it is complaining. It's talking about this one and all that. So I found it's usually a lot easier to then put this F in front of it for focus, um, and then just run that one test. And so now we're good. So now we've absolutely validated that this is in fact the test. I can't tell how many times thought it was the, like with naming and all that, it's easy to get confused and then you think you have a test that you don't. So it's upset that I don't have a router, an activated route. It doesn't have a provider for activated route. Now, I'm assuming that my other components, they use routing as well. So whatever I'm doing for that one, I probably want to do for this one. Do not say anything about routing in tabular layout. So, oh yeah, that would be unique. So it was probably important to do that. What I just did was make sure that I'm not already doing, I haven't come up with some scheme, because there's 1,000 different ways to do a lot of these things, and staying consistent in the way you do it can really save you a lot of heartache down the road. All right, so I am not, um, I am not doing anything that does this. So now let's go ahead and look in here just for a little bit of, right, so activated route. I'm just going to type in the word route. Okay, so basically it does not have a provider for this. So I'm not like an expert in unit tests. Or, yeah, so, and I'm definitely not elite. I'm not a elite unit tester. Um, but sometimes you want to use like for some things you want to use stuff that was invented specifically for unit tests by Angular, and sometimes you can just use the regular one. I don't know what to do in this case, but I'm pretty sure that we want to add possibly a provider in here. I believe we can do this. Providers, colon, and we can do that. And then I think we can add the activated route, but I'm not sure exactly how to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to post this. This seems like something that would have happened a million times, so it should be just perfect for ChatGPT to give me some good information. So no, that's so funny. Activate. So basically, they're saying I could mock activated route, or I could mock it with specific route parameters. So I don't know why params of. So this is to, I guess, so that you can add the parameters to it. So I think what we want to do is this. We want to import our activated route, and that, I guess we're not using one that's specifically made for testing. So we're going to do that first. And then we're going to say, I think we can just do this, providers, activated route. Hit save. Okay, so that, nope, it did not. There was more, it wasn't just, oh, provide. Okay, let's see what our error is now. Okay, cannot resolve all parameters for activated route. So it looks like what we want to do is something along this line. So that's what this is for. I like to kind of do things as they you know, like test every little, try all the stuff that it gives me, see if I can grow my understanding at all, you know, as a freebie, you know, so it doesn't, you know, because while you're here, you can just be adding stuff, right? So activated route, provide activated route of, all right, so I'm going to get that working too. So of, I'm curious if it'll give me it from RxJS or not. Import, yep. All right. Let me see, I think I would rather this be down one. All right. Nope. Find get. Okay, so it's kind of a bummer. Did they do anything about get? Undefined get. I wonder, am I doing get? Is that my code that it's, does it tell me what line it's upset about? So it says on line 54 of the component, there's an issue. So let's go look at line 54. Ah, so, and it did mention that there I could do specific gets in my up here. Oh man. So I guess we want to do this. That is crazy. I guess that's like a lot of people need the ID. We just need the ID. That's what we need. Let's go back over here. And one more. One more. And over here. That's, oh, okay. We're still, I don't, we're still seeing the same issue. But I don't know if it actually ran it again. Nope, we still ran it. Cannot read properties of get. And is it still the same line? It's line 54. I don't think it was 54 before, was it? Oh, yeah, it was. Snapshot. Okay, so it's saying route snapshot param get ID. Oh, is it lowercase? Did they? Is this a case issue? No. Okay, so it's dying on this line of code. Let's ask ChatGPT. TS code. So it's saying it's pulling ID. That means your unit test, you need to mock the param map. Oh, did I not? I thought we were doing. I can't remember. Let's go in here. Oh, yeah, we aren't doing param map. Okay, so let's go back over here. I actually feel like I might have a chance of learning something here. Oh, okay, so snapshot param map. And then you look over here, and I do snapshot, but I do params, not param map. And so over here, it's saying I can do that. Now, I would definitely say that I don't think that I understand this, but I do feel like at some point I may hear some words or something, and then this will all come together for me. Um, but I'm kind of, I guess, setting the the groundwork for at some future point if I'm watching some video or something like that about Angular and someone says something that this is all the information, and I'll be like, oh, okay, oh, it all fits together now. Um, so convert to map is not a thing. So apparently that comes from the Angular router. Convert to param map. Wondering why they pull it from two different. Activated router. Let's see. I don't. It seems like that's the same thing. I can just go over here, right? Well, first of all, I guess the best thing to do is mouse over here and see if it has any. Yeah. So import from the RAM router. It actually had a different thing. I'm curious now, actually, about that. Oh, add a missing function. No, I would rather. Okay, so that's good. So R1 is succeeding now. So we should be able to get rid of this F describe. I never know what it means when rec gets all quiet like that. I suspect it means that I'm becoming more less emotionally attached to whatever I'm talking about. So this is pretty good. So 100% of our functions are called. Branches got us again. So somewhere we have branches that are maybe should become functions. That's kind of at the top of my list. So 70 out of 80 branches. And then it says that 613 out of 615 statements are covered. And then 600 out of 612 lines are covered. So basically, we have two branches that are also two lines. Um, so we have, because, and I showed you at the beginning, Control P, package.json, and anytime I open package.json, I close everything else. That's just a great habit to get into. You'll see that I have this / watch, which is what kind of makes it rerun, even though I'm changing, but it's not super consistent. And then -- code coverage, and that's what makes it give me, like, map out all my unit tests to all my code. That doesn't always work sometimes because you have to add some libraries, and I don't really remember how I did it. I think it might have come already, or possibly I kind of asked ChatGPT and it sort of walked me through. But when you do this, wrong one, you will, if you have code coverage and it worked, you'll have a coverage folder here, which is in the ignore, and you can drag this index.html into a browser that doesn't have anything in it. If I dragged it into mock HTML, it would have uploaded it to ChatGPT, and if I grabbed it in this, it would have just failed. But for some reason, I don't know. It's weird. So all of our problems, it looks like every problem we have is in this app update layout. So let's just look at that. Oh no, only one of my problems is in there. Oh, it looks like my other problem is in ST renderer. So let's go into app update layout and see what the issue is. Okay, so I don't have, every time, I don't ever run this line of code, aspect if AR. And so my experience has been that the easiest way to deal with this issue is to create a function and just call it. So I'll show you what I mean by that. And this is something I've learned on this project. And I feel like if I ever work in a place where I have to write the unit test again, this little piece of knowledge is going to be so valuable to me. I think your instinct will be to try to execute this effect. It does not, with where this service returns something, yeah, screw that. It is not worth, that is going to be much harder than what I'm about to do, or what I hope works that I'm about to do. Okay, so you want to, in this space, it's pretty easy to just sort of copy this. This is how I usually do this. Control V, and it'll take you there. Alternatively, you can choose to sort of imagine the application as a bunch of buildings and stuff and say, oh, okay, this is in my components and in my layout, and it's the app update layout. So components, layout, app, update, layout. I only did that because I'm just trying to get my brain configured to handle something like that. So this is, normally I wouldn't do it this way because I don't like to change the code for testing. But in this case, it's just way better. So basically I want to create a function that says set calculated aspect ratio. And this function is going to accept I think that's a number, right? Yeah, that's a number. This is a signal that returns a dictionary, and if there's something in the dictionary, so it could be a number or undefined, right? So AR, which is either a number, or it's possible that it could be undefined, right? That is the reality that we live in. And then I want to, and it's going to return a Boolean for now. No, I guess it's going to return a number. Or undefined. I guess that's, and I don't know why I decided to type out or. Man, that's so strange. Human beings, we are a fascinating set of creatures. So now I'm going to return AR. That's one thing I'm going to do. The other thing I'm going to do is say if AR. So AR by default is 0, if I remember correctly up top. Or this calculator is 0. So basically, even if we got a 0, it would just not change in that. So basically, we're going to set it if it exists. If it doesn't exist, or if it's 0, we're going to leave it alone. I guess one thing that could bite us is if we wanted to change it to 0, but that's a huge problem if that happened, I think. And by huge, I mean like not the end of the world. I just mean like something has gone really weird. And we got probably bigger problems than this function not working. If it thinks that it has something that's a 0 with a 0 AR. And then we're just going to say this. Oh, what did I do? Somehow I went into like full window mode, and it's taken over my whole window. Let's see, I don't even know how to get out of that mode now. What if I go to here? Okay, so that's right. I almost feel like killing my whole. Okay, let's go to here. Not to there. To here? Yeah. So I accidentally hit some keys strokes, and now the SC has taken over my whole monitor. I'm guessing that there's like I hit Windows and something and it caused. F11. F1. Okay, so F11 apparently would take me back. Oh, I'm in the wrong. Let's try that. F11. There we go. All right. I've done that so many times. So I bet you it was a Control Shift F. No, that was Zen mode. Interesting. Yeah, that worked. All right. So basically, we want to take this AR. Okay, so oh yeah, I was trying to call this function. And so I think testing that is just going to be a lot easier than testing, trying to test the effect running. So I don't think that's necessarily going to help my code coverage, but I do think it's going to make it easier to. Yeah, so now that's covered, but this one isn't covered. But now I can call this directly, which is a lot easier. So it's been a while since I've written one of these unit tests, so let's do this. And the last time, so basically it is a single spec, and it accepts a couple of required arguments, and the first one is the name of it, which is, or an expectation, which is just a string that just describes it, and the second is an assertion, which is a function that you give it to execute and test. So it should set the aspect ratio. Really, that's its only job, right? Now we could go all crazy, and maybe we'll need to. I don't think so, but we could go crazy and test undefined and all that, and it really wouldn't be that hard to test, but I'm not going to do that. So that's our assertion, this function. So right now we're not doing anything. So, and this is a multi-step process for me, right? The first step is just to get the coverage, and the second test is to write a good test. Oh, wrong one. So component, I believe, is how they set it up here. When they built this out, see, they just named that component. That's the only reason that's like that. And then set calculated aspect ratio, and then 1. Right, so, and I guess I kind of like to do this. Const AR is equal to 1. And AR. And then expect. And I guess const set AR is equal to. So now we're going to expect. And that's just something you just have to remember, that's how you do it when you do unit tests, that you use this function called expect, and you pass it one value, and then you pass it this thing, and one of them is 2 equal, and then AR. So I expect that this set AR is equal to AR. And so this should actually take care of all that stuff. And we may very well want to, and actually I've never done that all in one step. So I was saying I was going to do this in multiple steps. I don't think it worked. See, sometimes it just doesn't work. Okay, I'm going to do this, F, so we can just focus on this one, hit save, see if it actually did anything. See, I don't think, well, no, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, it didn't seem to actually run my function. And yeah, it's still showing that it did everything, but I found that this works every time. Reload. Yeah, well, if you go there and you run it, then so now we have 100% on that. So that's good. And so now let's remove this off, and I believe we had another issue to deal with. Now again, we could have spent a good bit of time sort of testing numbers and arrays and comparing it to what's on the component and all that, but I just don't see the value in that. Um, Unless you're just trying to kind of get a little smarter on your own. You're just trying to self teach. So 99. So we have one statement that's not covered, one branch that's not covered. So anytime I see a branch, I almost always think that I'm going to end up creating a new function. So it's functions over flow control is sort of the spirit of it. Is like it's so much easier to test functions than flow control. So we got to find our one non-perfect, because we will only accept absolute perfection. All right, here we go. And so let's see, is this a similar thing? This is kind of a similar thing. We probably should pull this into its own function. And then, and maybe, yeah, where that accepts the calculated ratio, and then this is a lot easier to test than. I mean, it's not too particularly bad. I guess we could pass it in there, but this is flow control, and I don't know. I think it's easier just to call a function, because basically basically all it's doing is either sets it to the whole value. It either creates a new um, object to set there, or it does that, or it assigns it to. If it has an object, then it does it. So let's go ahead and find this one. I'm going to close everything but my package. Close all. Close others. And st render service. So that's in my services in st, and then in render. So let's go into services. So let's close. Okay, we have st. Let's close that. And I believe it was in st, and then it was in renderer, which is where we're, and then st render service. And then it's upset about line 108. So we'll go to 108. And so this is it right here. So I think that it's better to turn that whole thing into a function that gets called, so I don't have to worry about how it gets called. So this one is store calculated AR value. So I could imagine a future where this ends up becoming, the function that gets called ends up becoming a more generic function. But for now, we're gonna keep it as simple as possible. And so store calculated AR. See, I imagine it's end up being store property, and then within there we'll decide stuff. But for now, we're going to do it this way. Okay, this is going to return the calculated values. Yeah, I think this will return the calculated values. What is calculated values? So I'm going to go over here to the definition. Is that what I want? Okay, so that is a type of calculated values, which right now is only that. So this returns calculated values. And then basically okay, and I kind of want this to be a pure function. So I guess what we want to do is, and a pure function means that it doesn't care about, it doesn't affect, well, one of the things it means is it doesn't get information from the state, its context, and it doesn't set any information on the context. So basically, I just want to turn this into an assignment. Um, so it's going to take, it's going to accept the st renderers calculated values. Which, I'm just going to call this calculated values. Which again could be a calculated values. It might be a calculated values we get, but it also might be undefined. And I got to say that I think this is so much easier to understand, like in the, okay, now why is it complaining about this? I don't understand. I can understand why it's complaining about that, but cannot find name calculated values. And so, okay, so now let's just take this code here. And then I'm going to say if calculated values. Then we're going to return. I'm going to fix this up here in a second, but return. Okay. So if we get the calculated values, then basically we're going to take our calculated values okay, I also need to pass in the aspect ratio. And I'm very confused why this is not working. And that's a number. Okay. Like, I don't really quite understand this because all I'm saying is, hey, this is what I'm getting. Cannot find name calculated. Oh, okay. But we probably are not importing it. Because we were, I thought we were using, I thought we had defined it. Like st, oh, okay, that gets, okay, so that gets brought in. Oh, I wonder if it's not exported. Go to definition. See, here's our, okay, so we do not export our calculated values interface. So that wasn't available to be imported, so then that was why that was all broken, which I think makes a lot of sense. Man, there's so many things that can go wrong. Okay, so now we should, yeah, now we have a blue one, so we can say import. So now we might get a calculated values back. If we get a calculated values back, then basically all we want to do is take the calculated values that we got and set that. But let's say it's not, then we want our calculated values to be equal to the aspect, like an object, which this is, you know, I'm pretty sure I did this before, is shorthand for this. Those are the same thing. And then return calculated values. And we're golden. Right, now we have, and this isn't store calculated R. It's get calculated, no, update update calculated AR for calculated values. So this is like a kind of, yeah, I don't know about this. Something is off about this, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Um, but so I think what we want to do is we want to say strender dot calculated values is equal to this dot update. So this is like doing two things. It will create it, um, or it will. So I guess it should be get, not update. And I think that's hard. Like for me, it's really easy to just sort of switch back and forth between like renaming and then doing logic and then renaming and then and I that probably just took me years and years and years to get to where that's pretty easy for me. But it's gonna take some practice for like if you haven't done it very much. And it's one of those weird things where like once it does start to come together for you, you won't remember why, you won't understand why it isn't working for everybody else. Like once you figure it out, um, and I guess it's this. Now, oddly enough, I don't think you actually need to do this assignment. I think this is actually a really weird one, right? Because like, let's say you're sending it undefined, then it's going to give you. I don't know if it gives you a link to undefined. That is so mind bending, and it might not be mind bending to you. This is literally something I've run in for the first time. So I'm passing this thing, and this could be undefined. So it would not be. I don't believe that JavaScript would give a link to an undefined thing inside of STRenderer. But let's say it's not undefined, then it's actually going to give you a link, a reference to the calculated values. So in the case of this first thing, it's actually going to update the actual calculated values, and there's no reason to return. But in this case, it's actually going to create a new object and return it, and and then it'll get assigned to calculated values. It is really, to me, mind bending, but it is probably the thing. The way how they got that working in the back in their engine, like who knows? That is like, I'm sure, very interesting code. Um, but how it work, so how they got it to work. But I think that is probably the thing. The way memory is kind of done that way, um, assigned and all that is probably the most. Once people really, really get into JavaScript, probably the biggest complaint. I can't think of a better way to do it though, and I do think it is just sort of a result of just running in a runtime language, a language that gets executed at runtime. But this isn't quite executed at runtime. So it would actually be interesting to see how this would get transpiled. But anyways, so let's see if that works. Um, Basically, we want to see if uh, if if it compiles still. So it still compiles. I don't think it will make us have better. Oh, okay. We actually want to get rid of this code completely. Now, we don't need this code anymore, I don't think. Actually, I'm just going to comment it out for the moment. There is some weird stuff going on here, so I'm not like 100% confident in wiping out that code at this point. Okay, so now this is a little easier because all we're expecting is the object back, so that should be pretty easy to uh, to test. I do want to actually just make sure we didn't just break it. It wouldn't surprise me if it just totally broke it, but an update. Okay, so it didn't, because this would look all wonky if it did. So that worked. So I'm going to get rid of this. And now we just need to write a test for get calculated values. And this is pretty easy. It would be kind of fun to see um, so if calculated, and see, actually, there's another thing going on here too, is it's possible the calculated value object would exist, but aspect ratio wouldn't exist. And this will actually create the aspect ratio attribute and assign it. But if calculated ratio exists and aspect ratio already exists, then it would override it. And if calculated value doesn't exist and then this happens, then it'll create a new object. So there's actually a lot more code going on here than you can really sort of than is obvious. So that is weird. I will admit that. So update. It should update. And just to be clear, the reason it's a considered a pure function is because this function is going to return the same value no matter what, because for the same inputs, because it doesn't change based on anything that has to do with the component state or any other state. It just cares about what it gets. The calculated. So that description is off. There's something wrong with that description. Can't quite wrap my mind around that at the moment either. So I need to circle back and fix that description right after I write this test. Let calculated equals. So this is an example where it exists. It exists, but there's nothing on it. Now, technically, that shouldn't even be possible to happen because the TypeScript should enforce that, but I'm not sure on that. And so we have our component. We're in our component, right? So we have our component object. And I don't know why it made it a capital C. We have our instance of the component, which is a lower c. Oh no, we have our instance of the service. This is a service, not a component. And we want to, is it set? See, this something is a bit off on it. Get calculated AR for calculated values. Okay, so that is definitely wrong. Get calculated values for AR change. I think that is what we're doing. We're getting the calculated value, and it's definitely plural values object. That's a really long name, but it is doing something pretty darn complex and weird. It's like not too bad like to understand and all that, but like to sort of understand what the overall intentions and what it does, and the code isn't very complex, but the concepts of what it's doing is really weird. And I know when I come back around, this is going to have to be refactored in a way when this scales up and there's more than one calculated value. And I don't know, maybe there'll never be any other calculated values. I think there will be, but when we get to calculated values in the future and we have to scale this up, this is going to be super confusing and very easy to botch. So I don't want to do that. Okay, so calculated is the object that we're sending. It may not allow that. And then 1 is that. Okay, so it didn't like this, and it doesn't like this because it's like probably saying that's the wrong kind of type. So and then it's upset probably because I don't have my aspect ratio set. So I'm just going to say aspect ratio 0. So let's just make sure this actually covers this code. Oh, it failed. Did I not? Oh, I didn't save this. Now I'm pretty sure everything's going to work. Everything's going to be fine. But you know, you can't be 100% sure, but it will, if something's screwy, it'll definitely present during the end-to-end testing. And just keep in mind, since I don't actually have an expectation, this this aspect ratio, we get this warning. I'm definitely going to fix that, but we do have 100% all the way around, top to bottom. So we did that. Now, just to make my point that I was trying to make before that I may not have done. So right now, even though we didn't assign it, so in the code we assigned it, but we never assigned it to anything. I'm pretty sure that if I say expect calculated dot aspect ratio to equal 1, that will work. So keep that in mind. I have not assigned it. I did not reassign it, but it still worked. So in the code, in the actual code, I did something like this. Calculated. I don't know. Let's go over and grab it real quick. I think this is like, if this makes sense to you, then, and for the first time, like if you listen to the words I'm about to show, the thing I'm about to demonstrate, and it makes sense to you, then so if I did like that, this is basically what I'm doing in the actual code. I don't know what I'm doing wrong here, but basically I'm doing an assignment, right? I'm basically assigning it, but over here I'm not assigning it. Why is that not st render? Oh, because that gets passed in. No? Oh yeah. So yeah, it's like it gets passed in and it's using it, so that won't work. But basically I'm doing something along the lines of this. Oh my gosh, calculated. Right? That's basically what I'm doing right now. And I think if I do that, if I have it like that, and I go, oh, okay, if I do this, most people, I think it makes a lot of sense that, okay, I got calculated, I have reason, I can expect that to be 0. Then I run this and I assign it to calculated, and in that code it assigns it to 1. So this all, so if I check, it's equal to 1. And that is like really nice, clean code for understanding. And I did the main reason, well, I kind of had to do it because it's possible that calculated could not exist. So it has to be assigned. But even if it didn't have to be assigned, I would probably still do it. Um, but it might blow your mind. And I do remember it blowing my mind that that still works. And that's because I'm passing in this object. It's updating this object, even though I'm not reassigning, it's still updating it. And so we still get a pass on this, even though we aren't actually reassigning it. Now, I do have to assign it in that situation because another, um, I believe I can also say undefined. And I can pass in undefined, and then it'll actually return the whole object. But if I don't assign it, it wouldn't get us, it would not be assigned. So it is a very strange set of ideas that's happening there. Um, and in that case, it wouldn't update the aspect ratio, right? Because I didn't even send it in. But we are done with unit tests. Now, I genuinely believe that if I had to have done this the first week I was working on this stuff, I probably would have spent 2 or 3 days doing the work I just did in this 1 hour and 11 minute session. So I'm definitely much, much, much faster at unit testing now. So that's a good thing. Um, I do think that I feel like this is ridiculous, right? This name here is absolutely ridiculous, and it should be ridiculous because it's doing some ridiculous stuff. And I think it's ridiculous right now because I just don't know how it's going to scale out. So it's kind of like if you were like redoing a room or something like that, um, setting up the room and you kind of needed to use the room in the meantime, sort of just throwing your bed in there and just letting that go because you don't know exactly what you're going to use the room for in the future. Are we going to have 10 beds in here, or are we going to do this, or are we going to do that? You don't know. So that is my alarm, and whenever that alarm goes off, it's 3 p.m. and I always update my light bar so that it has evening colors, and that helps me a lot with sleep at night. And I also do turn off one of my lights. So basically, this is sort of my way of telling my body that okay, we are in the back half of the afternoon because I kind of like to go to bed around 9 o'clock at night. So I want to go to bed in like 6 hours. So this is sort of my way of kicking off my system that kind of tells my body what time it is. Um, Used to be that I would sort of work in sort of a dim room, and then I would go out at 5 o'clock, and that would be the brightest part of my day, and then it would be really hard to go to sleep because a few hours later, it's only a couple hours later, and my body thinks it was midday just a few hours ago. So at least that's my opinion. But anyway, so we have unit tests working now. This definitely used to take a lot longer than it takes now, so I think that's a positive thing. Um, this is probably maybe the first time that I've worked on unit tests where the unit testing took a lot less time than the actual code writing. That is definitely, I think that this might be the first time. Most of the time when I have to do unit tests, especially if I'm trying to get 100% test coverage, unit testing takes 3 to 4 times as long as the coding. Well, I've been working on this for a whole week, and unit testing took one episode, and I wasn't even really highly focused. I hadn't even started the unit testing, so I went through all the different processes of the unit testing. So anyways, next is, let me just try it, npm run Cypress. So tomorrow we're going to do Cypress, npm run Cypress, open. That's like, come on, we've been doing this for over 2 hours. Let's get this. She probably wants to get back to her cage. She enjoys her cage. Um, so that's always good. She's got a pretty big cage. It's got multiple layers, and she likes to spend a bunch of time like organizing things and stuff like that. But I'll tell you though, I think Cypress is the absolute, not Cypress, end-to-end testing, and I've got no problems, no complaints about Cypress whatsoever. But it is just an absolute game changer. I don't know how advanced applications can be built without something like this. Now that I've had this, it's just like, how did we even do this before? Start unit testing. There we go. Let's see what we got going here. All right. I don't think there'll be any issues, but we can't be sure. And I think, yeah, so update is already built. So I think we'll just have to tweak update to look for those values, those aspect ratio values. And the first unit test, our end-to-end test, always takes forever. Don't know why, but and it's kind of cool because it has Chrome 139 right there. It'd be kind of cool to look back at some of my old videos. So that one passed, and see if my Chrome changed since last time. So it would have been easy to not even think, like we never even thought about keyboards in that other one. And maybe we need to update the keyboard to be able to do an update, to go into update. I don't even know. Let's see. Can we? Oh, man. See what happens if I don't even know, like, because it's showing that it was focused, right? So that's the focus. Okay, yeah, so the focus is on that. And update. So that's cool. I think I would rather it, like when you did your, it would be better if it went to here, though, in the keyboard, and then to the delete. So it'll be interesting to try to get that. Oh man, I don't even know how. Yeah, so that would probably be a useful thing to do, is to update the keyboard to go across like this instead of like through these three and then up to there. And that could be like just a markup change, like I'm maybe the way I'm doing the markup. I'm curious. Inspect. I really should get going with my day, but I'm very, very curious about this. So that, and then yeah, it's so weird because yeah, it seems like the next one should be this button here because it's next in the list, but but for some reason it's going to the other app viz. Oh, maybe it's because this tab index. Yeah, that's probably what it is. I bet you if I think the higher the tab index, the more likely. So I think if these had the same tab indexes as these, so this has a tab index of 2. I think if these all had the same tab index, then it would go naturally. So anyways, let's try our resize. We just have a couple more to do. Yeah. Reflow. I'm just finishing up this video. So that all passed. I can't even remember what all the requirements of that one is, but it passed. So I'm just going to trust it that it was good. I mean, that's kind of the whole point. Update. This one will be the interesting one because there have been actual changes. Okay, so that worked. And then routing. We might need to add another one of these. Oh no, I saw. So we have our new custom route and our update route too. I definitely saw it go into update. So anyways, that's that. Happy coding, everybody. Bye.